What's going on? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and on the phone line, my good friend and longtime Seattle radio legend, BJ Shea from the BJ and Migs Show on 99.9 KISW in Seattle. He is on Hoppe Hour. What's going on, BJ?
Hoppe, good to hear from you, buddy. I hear you're tearing it up down there.
I am, man. I sincerely have always looked up to you, man. Even when I first met you 7-8 years ago. What I've always respected about you, BJ, is you're very honest about yourself on air. You're very honest about yourself off air and your mental health and everything. And that's one thing I've always wanted to do with my brand, is to be honest like your show.
Hoppe, I think that's the way of the future. I really believe that when you're talking about millennials and Generation A, and those folks, man, and the B's and they're all about transparency. They're all about, hey, we're tired of being fed garbage. Just tell us what's up. Tell us the truth, and let's just live that way. So I feel like I'm fortunate that I was a little ahead of my time on that. It's nice to see that other folks are catching up with it, especially a lot of younger folks that are just, that's what they want, man.
How draining has radio been for you over the years? Because for me, I enjoy every second of it. But man, when I'm driving home after working the long shifts at 102.5 The Bone, there's sometimes I just drive in pure silence. Like I have nothing in my car going on.
Well, Hoppe, guys like you and I and anybody that does this job, we talk more than the average human being talks. And performing and planning, this brain work, it really does put you through a workout. It's something that a lot of folks don't know. They just feel like, hey, if I'm doing a physical workout, of course I'm tired. But using the brain a lot does eat up a lot of energy and a lot of calories in its own way. So I am not surprised you're tired. I think almost everybody I know in this business, if they put in a good day, good 4-hour shift with a lot of planning, a lot of excitement, and a lot of enthusiasm, which I know you have, dude, you will be tired. It's a good tired, though. You don't want to talk to anybody because you've just been talking for 4 hours, and it's a good tired. I think it's completely normal.
I know you're into board games and things like that. What else besides board games do you do to rejuvenate yourself and take care of yourself to basically, bring yourself back to earth after long shifts?
Oh, man, I would say quiet time is a good thing, Hoppe. A lot of times I'll go out and I'll take long walks. I'm not a physical person. I can't stand going to the gym. I've hated it. I don't know what people get this sort of high from going to a gym and doing this great workout or running a lot. There's something that goes on where they really get some benefit and feel good afterwards. And me, it doesn't work. I feel more miserable after having worked out. But taking a walk and allowing my mind to wander and just have everything shut down and just sort of get rebalanced is a big way, especially being out in any kind of nature. I mean, I don't mind. I don't want to sit there and like bust my ass walking, but at the same time, I don't mind going on a trail and just being out there, seeing some cool, beautiful stuff and just letting nature rejuvenate me, which a lot of professionals will tell you, medical professionals will say that spending time in nature is really just restorative for the body. And I think for what I do, it's definitely restorative for the body. So it's meditational without me actually having to sit in a chair and meditate.
And you are very fortunate to be out in Seattle where I haven't been there yet. And that's on my bucket list of places to go in America. And it just looks so beautiful with all the trails. Like I'll see your son, Joey and Sarah going on walks and I just want to be there. Like the pictures they take just look so much fun.
It's a pretty beautiful area, Hoppe, no doubt about it. We get a lot of rain, but because of that rain, man, we get some greenery. It's pretty gorgeous, and it is a very outdoorsy place here in the Pacific Northwest. I remember one time we were talking with William Shatner, Captain Kirk, and he was just like, don't you just love where you live? I mean, I can't wait to get back to the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful. I'm sitting there going, wow, you got beaches, you got Southern California. I think it's the Hollywood Hills. I think he would be digging that, but he was a big lover of the Pacific Northwest. So you're not alone, Hoppe. A lot of folks really dig this area.
How weird is it up there? Because I feel like everybody makes fun of Florida for being weird, but I sometimes get the vibe, and now I could be wrong, so let me know if I'm wrong, but I feel like the Pacific Northwest has its fair share of weird.
I would say that every place has their own fair share of weird. The trouble with Florida is, for some reason, their stories get shared with a lot of us radio people. I don't know if there's privacy laws or whatever, but Florida stories seem to always be in the news, maybe because they're more transparent and therefore a lot of news agencies get to get them for their weird news stories. Because we don't get as many stories from anywhere else but Florida. I mean, there are some from other places, but I think you're unfairly targeted. I can't imagine that the only weirdness in our country would happen in Florida, because you're right. We got our fair share of weirdness up here, and like any problem you can think of, anywhere, I would say almost any place in the country has that kind of problem. And any good thing you can think about an area, a lot of folks would say, yeah, same thing anywhere in the country. I lived in Jacksonville for a while, did a radio show down there for a couple of years. And sure, there were things I didn't like about Jacksonville and thought, man, this is weird compared to other places I've been. But then again, I was like, yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff down here in Jacksonville that other places didn't have. So our weirdness, probably, I would say, for other people in the country would probably be the fact that we're really calm, non-confrontational, very thinky, and just really don't get highly emotional, perhaps the way some other parts of the country do. And I thought some people might find that weird. I thought that was weird when I first moved here, originally being from the Northeast, where we're very emotional and sometimes don't think before we act. Seattle's the exact opposite, and that can seem, I think, kind of weird to some people.
How is the music scene now in Seattle? Because I know in the 90s, Soundgarden and bands like that, the grunge scene came onto the scene from the Pacific Northwest. What's the music scene like now in 2021?
It is still a great music scene, and it always was, even before the Seattle sound or the grunge sound swept the rest of the country. It's an amazing phenomenon when any city gets to shape the sound of a nation the way the Seattle sound did. But that still doesn't mean that there wasn't great music before the Seattle sound and not great music afterwards. Seattle has always been a great music town. They love their venues, and people will go to war to try to preserve an old venue. If some builder wants to come in and just knock it down and put a bunch of apartments up, people will just go crazy and say, no, that's a legendary spot. We don't want that to happen. And you'll get big musicians that will take part in that. Folks like Duff McKagan and Mike McCready and people like that. They'll because they remembered what it was like, and they're great ambassadors. They also really look for new talent, highlight new talent, and there's always something going on, man. If you're a lover of music, even though it may not be as big as the Seattle sound, if you love good rock music, Seattle is one of the best places to be for that. We still thrive where in other parts of the country rock music has a hard time. Not in Seattle, man. Our station does well, and it is highly, I would say, beneficial or benefited rather from the great Seattle music scene. Still going well, man. It's pretty amazing.
Do you ever think that the Seattle sports fan base is underrated? Because you think about the Northeast and some of the big towns in the Midwest, but I feel like Seattle Sounders fans, especially, and the Seahawks, obviously, I feel like that's two underrated fan bases.
You know, there was a while where I would have said that they were rated exactly the way they should be. When I first got here, I was not impressed with Seattle sports fans. Not the fans themselves, but the number of Seattle sports fans. I just felt like they didn't care about sports the way some other cities around the country did. That's how it was 21 years ago when I got here. Then I would say about 10 years ago, it was the last straw. When the Seattle Sonics left the town and they were basically hijacked away, they realized they almost lost the Mariners. They were in moving trucks ready to move away. The same thing with the Seattle Seahawks, if not for Paul Allen saving that team. And I think finally when the Sonics left and they realized, man, we finally lost a team. We almost lost all of our teams. And I think people started waking up and saying, we need to let everybody know that we love sports around here. So when the Sounders came, it was a great opportunity to prove that we could be great fans. And they sure did that. And it didn't hurt that finally they got a winning product on the football field when Russell Wilson showed up and the Legion of Boom. And those two factors turned this into a sports city. And even the politicians started acting as if, in fact, it meant something to consider sports fans and consider anything at all that had to do with sports. Wasn't highly regarded, in my opinion, 20 years ago, the way it is now. And yeah, you're right. I think it's underrated because people may just have that old memory of that, hey, Seattle, what kind of sports town is that? They lost their basketball team. They almost lost their baseball team and football team. They don't care about sports out there. And we're way the heck up here in the Pacific Northwest, so that, we're probably not as known. It would be nice for the Mariners to finally figure it out and finally get to the World Series. They're the only baseball team that's never been to the World Series. So, I mean, they're kind of like the vestiges of what it used to be. But it's changed. They love their sports up here, and there are more fans, and they're very excited, and they're spoiled with the fact that they've had winning football for a long time now. And of course, winning soccer. The Sounders have had an incredible run as they went to the finals again this year, third time in 4 years. So and of course, the exuberance and the support for the Seattle Kraken hockey team. We can't believe they called us the Kraken. Everybody wanted it to be called the Kraken, but I always felt like it was just such rock and roll fans. We talked about it on our morning show saying, man, what a great name that would be for the team. We never in a million years thought they would name the team the Seattle Kraken, but they had said they heard so much of an outcry from the sports fans. They said, we need to call this team the Kraken, or we're going to lose a lot of people that actually helped us get this hockey team in the first place. So there's a great connection between these franchises and the fans that I don't know if you see this kind of connection in other cities. That's another reason why I think it's grown up here as well as it has lately, Hoppy, is that the management of these teams really do listen to the fans and dig the fans. And the Kraken, the name the Seattle Kraken is a perfect example of that. I don't think that happens in any other city where I think they would just name the team what they want to name it, like the owners would, and they wouldn't care about the fans. But the Kraken was definitely a fan name, and they picked it. And so this town's very excited and hoping that we see the Sonics come back after a couple of years of seeing how well the Kraken do in the brand new arena they're building, which will be great for an NBA team. So we could be a 4-team city, which we never were in the first place. Or I should say a 5-team city, which we never were in the first place, which we're a big enough city to be that. So pretty exciting sports-wise, Hoppy.
Do you think when you guys added Pete Carroll about 11 years ago, and then you guys added Russell Wilson 8-9 years ago, that was when the Seahawks began to be elite? Yeah,
and Pete Carroll was the perfect guy for this city. You know, Hoppy, you'll hear some people say in radio, go find a place to live and marry that city. Marry your market wherever you are. And Pete Carroll, he was a coach for a couple different teams before he got here. Never seemed to work anywhere else, but his philosophy fit right in with the Pacific Northwest, and now is considered one of the elite philosophies in football, where almost anybody wants to play for this team because of how Pete Carroll, John Schneider, and all of these guys run the organization. And I know that they're trying to, is it the Pittsburgh Steelers? Somebody, I'm not sure who it is. Oh, but maybe the Lions. I think the Lions are trying to steal our GM, John Schneider, because of the great moves that he's made basically along with Pete Carroll. He and John they've done a great job. And you're right. I'd say Pete was the perfect guy for the perfect place. I don't know if he ever would have been successful as he is here anywhere else. This just was the right city for him. And as it turns out, now people are sort of going, oh, maybe Pete had the right idea after all.
Also, I feel like Russell Wilson is underrated in a weird way because sometimes he doesn't have the best games, but when you need a big play from him, he's there for you.
Hoppy, we've complained. Of course, we're homers, and I've been sort of banging on the Russell Wilson should have been the MVP multiple times by now bandwagon. The problem is that they go by these beautiful, wonderful, and incredible stats, and they don't take a look at the fact that guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, they have great seasons because they have great offensive lines. And for a long time, the Seattle Seahawks were never an offensive-minded football team. Pete Carroll loves great defense, and then just an efficient offense. But with the fact that there really wasn't much of an offensive line, any other quarterback would have been murdered in those years. And for Russell to have the success that he had with nowhere having near the talent that guys like Brady and guys like Aaron Rodgers and guys like Drew Brees get to have, he found a way to make touchdowns happen. And I feel like he should have been considered higher in a lot of that voting for the fact that he didn't have anywhere near the weapons that the elite quarterbacks have. And yet he's put up some amazing numbers. And it's unfortunate. This year we thought would be his year, and then he's tailed off. And again, you know, a lot of that is due to the fact that he didn't have all of his weapons again because we had some injuries. And sure, everybody has injuries, but the problem is that Russell Wilson needs everybody in order to look halfway as good by numbers as some of these other guys. And he won't get MVP again this year. It'll probably go to Aaron Rodgers. And it really sucks because I really believe that Aaron Rodgers, anybody else, you put them in Seattle, they would be murdered. They'd be on their back half the time, not being able to get up. Whereas Russell really, really works hard to stay healthy. The guy's never missed a game. And yet you see how many times he gets sacked. Nobody gets sacked as much as he does. And yet he continues to deliver. And we'll see, man. You know, maybe if he wins a Super Bowl this year, they might decide to give it to him. Trouble is you're not supposed to count the postseason, I think, when it comes to MVP, but he won't get it again this year. It's a tragedy. He's completely underrated. He's a fantastic quarterback, not just because he's ours. He really, really is.
So how have things been going with your morning show in the past, 5 years, let's say?
Ooh, 5 years. Wow. I thought, because all I can think about is this damn COVID year.
True.
Which has been a gigantic, Hoppe, it's been a huge challenge. And I'm happy to say that we're still together. We got everybody on the show that was on the show pre-COVID, which was a miracle because there's a lot of downsizing that's happened in our business. And we had a lot of guys on our show. So I thought, man, if we can somehow survive this without losing anybody, that would be a heck of an accomplishment. And we did. It was a big testament to everybody involved, the market manager and our program director, Dave, and our operations director, Ryan. Everybody worked together so that we could figure out how to keep the company happy and do whatever we needed to do budgetarily and still keep everybody on the show. I'm pretty proud of that because I didn't want to lose anybody in the family. Prior to that, 5 years, man, I mean, we've made some changes. I would say 5 years ago, I think one of the members wasn't here. And we had a couple of different people and we had to change the culture of the show. We just thought that we needed to move in a different direction. And so we got to do that. And that worked out to be a smart move. So knock on wood, the last 5 years, we've been able to maintain. We've got a good amount of competition in Seattle. It's Jubal's home market, and when Brooke and Jubal were still together, they still are in the same market, just working for different radio stations. But they're really talented shows, and so for us to continue to be competitive, that just shows everybody works their butt off. Everybody works really hard, and so we're healthy. We're good in that respect. We're still very competitive. We're just Hoppe, we're just trying to survive this damn COVID, man. We're just trying to keep our heads above water.
Would you say it's almost a little bit harder now that Brooke and Jubal broke up because you have two different versions of the show, if that makes sense?
There are two schools of thought with that. Yes, it could be that you're absolutely right. It's like, oh, wow, there's a talented show right there. And then, of course, Jubal goes over there and puts together a show, and now you've got extra competition. And there are other people who think that they might have cannibalized themselves, giving their listeners are like, well, where do they go? And they have to stay with Jubal, they have to stay with Brooke. And would we benefit because, they might not have the same ratings? It's a hard one to call right now. I don't know which one might be true, Hoppe. I'm not really an expert with that kind of stuff, but I surely hope it works to our benefit because Brooke and Jubal definitely were an amazingly talented show and were killing in the ratings. They did such a good job. We had to fight for everything we had just so that we could also stay where we were in the ratings and be a competitive, top-rated show. So I guess time will tell. We surely have a good team of people that tell us what to do when it comes to strategy. And then, of course, Steve and Rev and Danny and Vicky and Joe and Sarah, they are some of the best that I've ever worked with in the business. So I know we got great talent. So we just keep plugging away, doing what we do, and hoping that's good enough.
Over the years, how many haters have you had that have told you maybe that your voice wasn't good enough? Because I have my fair share of haters here in Tampa, a few coworkers and just listeners. And it's a fascinating thing because it will hurt you, at least for me, for a second. And then it's just fuel to my fire. So I'm just wondering for you, as someone who's been outspoken and very charismatic throughout your time in radio, how much hate have you received?
A lot, Hoppy, a lot of hate. And I think you're wise to put that as fuel towards your fire, because there's two ways to go on that. You can let it crush you, or it can let it motivate you. You hear a lot of football players talk about a big chip on their shoulder. One of our guys, DK Metcalf, who's having a great season, the chip he has on his shoulder is that people told him he couldn't play. And John Schneider finds those guys, our general manager. He finds guys that have been overlooked and says, look, man, prove them wrong. And they'll go out there with that chip on their shoulder, and they will play hard because they want to prove everybody wrong, as opposed to taking that negative feedback and letting it crush them. And that can happen. So I think you got a great attitude. Lots of voices, Hoppy. I will say one of the main ones, one of my favorite stories about that is I was interviewing my hero in Boston, and Charles Laquadera did a great radio show in Boston. It was a huge show, so successful, so many years. And I went to interview him when I was a young guy in a broadcasting school. And I remember after the interview, during the interview, because my questions were crap, it was bad. And yeah, my voice was really not that great. And he just said, I hope you don't think you're going to make anything of yourself in this business. You're never going to get ahead in this business. And it was crushing at the time. I believe he was joking. But I would say 30 years later, as I was celebrating my 10th anniversary here at KISW, unbeknownst to me, Steve hunted down Charles Laquadera and got him to be on the show. And I always kept a tape of that interview. So I always had it. I used to play it from time to time. So I played that tape for Charles 30 years later, and it was pretty wonderful. He goes, I'm so glad you didn't listen to me. He says, plus, I don't know if you know, but I had a coke problem, so I probably wasn't in my right mind. And I went and got a chance to actually visit him after that interview that we did. He welcomed me to his house, and he was really very complimentary. And I used that as motivation. I mean, he was the best guy in the world telling me I'd never make it. I'm like, well, F you. I'm going to show you that I can make it. And he ended up saying, hey, dude, I'm glad you didn't listen to me. I'm glad you still did it, because obviously you're very successful, and that would have been horrible if you didn't follow your dream. So, Hoppy, first of all, when the listeners say what they say, Hoppy, the listeners are complaining about everything. It doesn't matter. They're going to complain about everything. And it's good, because you need to love and hate something on a successful show. There's got to be people that are loved, and in my opinion, there's got to be people that are hated. And I was always the hated guy most of the time on every show that I was on. So that became my brand. And you are needed. You are so needed, because what are they going to complain about if there's nothing to complain about? If everything is perfect and everybody's fantastic, then there's no conflict. And I think it's a gift that they've got a Hoppy on their staff that can take all the arrows, because if there's no arrows flying, that means no one's paying attention. And if nobody's paying attention, that's not good for any show. So I'm sure the people you work with know how valuable you are, Hoppy, and the listeners probably don't realize how much they actually love to hate you. And that's okay, because if they don't have any response to you, that's the real problem. If they love you, great. If they hate you, great. But if they have no response to you, they're like, Hoppy, what do I care? Then it's like, man, I'm not doing my job. I need to get them to go one way or the other. I need them to have a polarizing opinion. So I think that's good on you, Hoppy. You've created exactly what you want in this business. You are noticed. And believe me, being noticed is the best thing you can ever ask for in this world, where everybody's got their attention divided everywhere, with all the apps and with all of the podcasts and with all of the video. I mean, you are competing against so much, and somebody's giving you a piece of their attention, Hoppy. That means you're doing it, brother. That means you're making it happen.
Well, it's come from 5 years of watching our morning guy, Mike Calta. He has haters and he has people that love him. And it's the way that he just interacts with everybody on social media is one thing that I've sort of looked at the past 5.5 years, is that he doesn't really let it bother him. He just either likes the comment or responds.
You know, you get the benefit of working around a great talent. Being around a guy like Mike, and I know Mike, and we've shared some panels together. He's a great guy and a great talent. I had that same good fortune myself, working around a guy like Brother Weeze. And so when you get to work around these great talents like, you know, Mike and like Weeze, guys like you and me when we were young, man, you know, you really benefit from that. You just see how it's done. You don't even have to have them teach you. You just watch them. And it's so beneficial for you to see how he goes through his day and what he does in life and how he responds and how he does a show. A guy as good as Mike Calta, man, dude, that is, I mean, Hoppy, you couldn't have asked for a better place to be around a guy like that, where you could just watch what he does and that'll make you great.
What did you learn? Because I've learned so much from Mike Calta, and it doesn't even feel like it was like learning. It was just observing him. For you, what were things that you observed 30 years ago when you were working with Brother Weeze?
For me, I will tell you, it wasn't until later on in my life when I started reflecting back on a lot of the things. At the time, I didn't think I was learning a thing. I was very confrontational. I thought I knew what I was doing, like a young, stupid punk that I was. I didn't realize the greatness that I was around. I just took it for granted. And it wasn't until years later when I started trying to do my own show and I was getting fired and I just couldn't figure it out. I started realizing, oh my gosh, remembering how Weeze would navigate situations so well that I was not doing a good job at. And so the one thing for me is that even though I was there and I was observing and I was in conflict and I didn't think Weeze did anything right at the time, I still remembered all of that stuff. So what I learned is what a great, like he just had such a passion. Like passion was important. Weeze was so unaware of what a great talent he was. We would have great conversations and I'd say, you know, you do all this, and this, you know, like an artist. He goes, an artist? You know, he just never saw himself that way. He was just a guy who had passion and an opinion, not realizing what a great storyteller he was. And that's the one thing I learned, is learning how to tell a story. Weeze to this very day can just captivate an audience. He knows how to tell a story. So I said, I've got to figure that out. Every time I speak, I need to be able to captivate the audience, tell that damn story, because that was one of Weeze's greatest attributes, and it is today. That man can tell a story. And that's the biggest thing I learned from him. And he used to say, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. And I love that about him. He said, look, this story is meant to entertain people. He's a natural storyteller. He knows what to embellish. He knows what to leave out. That way, he doesn't let the facts get in the way of a great story, which is, of course, what we're all doing, is we are presenting great entertainment to people. I am not going to boggle it with facts. You'll talk to old people sometimes, and they'll go, was that a Friday? I don't know. Well, we were at the store. What store was it? I don't know. I think it was the Target. Was it the Wall? I don't know. Now, what were we trying to buy? And it's like, you shut up and tell me the story. Weeze always knew how to do that. You know, he didn't care where it happened, when it happened, why it happened. What he cared about was, is it an entertaining story, I'm telling you? And that was the biggest thing I've learned from him.
Now, before I let you go, for people that might be listening that are just getting into radio, let's say between the ages of like 18 to 30, and we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's not a lot of jobs, what would be some advice in 2021? Because if I would have asked you this 5 years ago, I feel like the advice would have been different. So in January 2021, when we are recording this, what is your advice for people that want to go into radio, podcasts, or whatnot?
Hoppy, I'll say this. It's spoken word. It's an art. So the advice I give anybody is make sure that you train yourself in the performing arts. Get good at stuff. If you can do comedy, improv, do anything like that, because this is an artistic medium. Even though it's not always treated that way by a lot of people in our industry, you can be an artist and be very successful. So have the mind of an artist. And if you have that mind of an artist, seek out great people, as many as you can in this, whatever industry you love. The really successful, good people will never tell you to quit. They know you'll quit on your own. They know you're the one that will make that decision to quit. So like a guy like you, Hoppy, you had great passion and you wanted to be in this business. And I know many people might have told you don't do it, but you remember our conversations because I knew it was like, you know what, you're going to find out whether or not it's the right business for you. Who am I to tell you not to do it, especially with the passion you have? Because passion is a big part of getting it done. Passion is what will have you go through the just grit and grime of being an entry-level guy. Passion and excitement for what you want to do, that is a big, big, powerful motivator. As far as talent goes, well, you know what? How am I to judge talent? I have no idea. But if you've got passion, a desire to do it, and you are a good soldier, you know, you will listen to the people who are more experienced and you'll just say, tell me what to do, let me learn. That's all you need to do, man. Be willing to learn, have great passion, just want to eat, sleep, and drink whatever it is you want to do, and you will be successful, or you will decide, no, this isn't for me. But if somebody tells you not to do it, don't listen to them. Those folks are never to be listened to. The only person you should listen to about whether you should do something or not do something is yourself. People might give you information that you may not want to hear. That's one thing. But don't ever leave because someone told you to leave. Leave because you want to leave, or stay because you want to stay. And don't worry about how many people are leaving. And don't worry about the small amount of people that are staying. It's always been that way in our industry where I've always had people tell me there's just not enough jobs. You'll never be able to make it. It's too competitive. I had teachers in broadcasting school tell me that. I had people that were working in the business tell me that. And yet I kept going, Hoppy. I didn't listen to them. I found successful people who said, don't listen to them. You quit when you want to quit, or you stay as long as you want to stay. Don't let anybody tell you to do any different. So that's my advice, man. You know, is you make your own decisions. Do not let somebody tell you when to leave because they don't know anything about just who you are and what you can be. They have no idea. Just like me, I had no idea about how good you would be or wouldn't be, but I knew you're the one that had to make that decision, not me. And I would always encourage you the way people always encourage me. And usually the great, talented, successful ones are the ones that would never tell you to leave. Usually people that aren't so successful, people who are a little bitter, people who just got out of the business, they'll be the ones that tell you to leave. But in reality, they're kind of telling themselves to leave because it's just not right for them. But that doesn't mean it's not right for you, brother.
You know what I like about this interview is you're saying so much that I could learn from and that people could learn from that I'm going to re-listen to it to take in everything you're saying, because at times I wouldn't say lose motivation, but it hurts like when a coworker at work talks smack on air or whatnot. But like the fact that you're saying to keep going means a lot, because at my radio class 7 years ago, I remember there was this kid who thought he was the bee's knees, and he told me hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And then he was like the laziest kid, and he's not in radio. And I put into hard work, and now I'm employed, and you've put into hard work, and you're in a major market. So I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to hard work beats talent when the talent doesn't work hard.
And Hoppy, this is important because, getting mentally right is very, very helpful, because the bottom line is this. Yes, if somebody says anything about you, they're spending their time talking about you. I don't care if they're saying the worst things about you. They're spending their breath and their words talking about you. And I got news for you, at least from where I was raised. If you're talking about somebody and you're spending time even like putting them in a conversation, you care about them in some way, shape, or form. Either they're jealous, either who knows what, or either they secretly admire you, who knows why, but they're spending time talking about you. You're getting attention. And Hoppy, that is what any artist wants. Whether it's smack talk, great talk, it don't matter. And I've had my fair share of smack talk over the years. I mean, there are people that just could never, ever see me grow beyond wherever it was I was. And they just still to this day go, he's a failure. It doesn't matter how many successful, books we have, they don't care. It doesn't matter what our ratings are. If we ever go number one, whatever, how many times that may happen for us, they still consider me a bad talent. And I look at that person and go, all right, well, I guess you can't see beyond that. That's not my fault. That's your fault. And there's a reason, usually it's their own BS. But Hoppy, make sure you get your own brain in order, because stuff only hurts if I, on some level, believe it myself. Like, somebody can say things to me and I might go, I don't care about that. That's because I don't believe it. But if somebody says something to me and it hurts, on some level, it's because I believe it to be true as well. So even though they're saying something, they weren't the first person to introduce that thought to me. I was the first person to introduce that thought to me. I was the one that thought I wasn't good enough. I was the one that thought maybe I don't belong here. So Hoppy, you can be the fall guy. You can be the sidekick. You can be the guy, the punching bag. It doesn't matter as long as you believe you're a great talent, because you need all those aspects to make a great show. You need all sorts of types of people, including the person that gets made fun of all the time. It doesn't matter. On our show, I want everyone to know that they are respected. And when those microphones turn off, they are no better or worse than anybody else that's on the show. And if anybody starts treating anybody the way they're treated on the show, and I'll step in and go, what are you doing? This person right here is a valued member of the show, just like you are, just like I am. I don't care how much anybody makes. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is we're all performers on a stage, and we're as equally important as anybody, and we're human beings doing a great job. So, Hoppy, that's how I like to view myself and everybody else that works with me on the show, no matter what their role on the show is, whether they're the punching bag, whether they're the hero, whether they're the bad guy. It doesn't matter. When the mics are off, we're all professionals doing a damn good job putting out a product. And not everybody might get that, Hoppy, but if you get that and you know that about yourself, which I know about you, that's all you need. Let them think what they think. Guess what? Hoppy's still there. Hoppy's still getting it done. That's all that matters. But you're the one that has to believe in yourself first, Hoppy. So if those words hurt you, ask yourself why. Why do those words hurt me? What's going on here? And you might find out that you believe it on some level. And so then but you can fix that. You're the one that can change how you believe about you. So, yeah. So that was a long way to go that says, yeah, hard work and have a good attitude about yourself first, and then everybody else's words won't matter so much. Yeah, I guess that's a long and convoluted way of saying that.
When did you begin to fully believe in BJ Shea?
Hoppy. Truth be told, I'm not sure I 100% do. I'm working my ass off in therapy to actually get to that state. I do have moments where I do believe in me fully. I do. I will say that. I'm very happy that I have moments. And I'm also happy when I recognize when I'm the one being mean to me, and I might all of a sudden try to project that on some other person that I work with. And I'm really happy that this sort of therapeutic regimen that I'm on allows me to eventually see that. So I will say, Hoppy, that probably 5 years ago, I started really believing in me. Even though my agent and the program director and everybody that I work with just couldn't believe that I would even not believe in myself when they go, well, you take a look at your record, take a look at what you've done in Seattle. What is wrong with you? But yeah, I would say 5 years ago, I started getting it. And unfortunately, that was at 55 years old. Now, Hoppy, the good news for you is I think you and people of your generation will get things quicker than people of my generation got things. So I don't think you'll have to wait till you're 55. I think that you will start getting it more and more about just, about believing in yourself. Hoppy, you're in the business. You're there. People are giving you a paycheck. You are working for a radio station. So no matter what anybody says, you're getting paid in our business, and you've survived COVID. And you're doing a podcast where people like me will give you the time and sit with you because we believe in you. So you can at least look at those examples if you're having a hard time believing in yourself. At least look at some examples where other people believe in you, and at least believe what they say until you can believe it yourself. Because, Hoppy, you're doing it. You're doing it, and it was a lot easier. I think it was easier for me to get into business at the time that I got in than it would be for a guy like you to get into the business. So I think you even did it in a much more tough situation. and you're doing it. And I remember meeting you and, you know, and people not getting you. And I remember, you know, you did your best, and sometimes people just misjudged you, and it didn't stop you, man. And I think anybody who's really good in our business, all the way up to Howard Stern, has stories like that. Stories just like what you're going through. You're traveling the warrior's journey, my brother.
It was funny because when I was the intern at the morning show boot camp, it was guys like you, Brother Weeze, Rick Rumble. It was the guys that did like rock radio, the guys that were different, that were the ones that vibed with me when I was young and nervous. And it was a lot of and I'm not like talking smack, but it was a lot of the like perfectionist radio, like the prank calls and that. Those were the people that kind of judge me. And I've noticed that the people that I vibe with the best is like either talk radio or like rock radio, because that's like different. You're unique. You're a little awkward. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of my vibe, is like alternative radio.
Yeah, well, those are the folks that, well, alternative. Those are the folks that know that it's not necessarily that formula of having a great voice and, you know, sounding like the old, hey, everybody, it's blah, 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 and yeah, or doing, you know, the crank calls and that kind of stuff. They're afraid of people who have talent that's unique. And I'm not going to put anybody down, because there's a lot of great people that work in many different formats in our industry. So I don't want to put anybody down, but I will say this: the people that are afraid of super talented people are the ones that maybe aren't so talented themselves. And our business is known for not being the greatest judge of talent. I'm fortunate that I work in a company where they really, you know, Pat Paxton and a lot of the folks that work along with them, they do have a good judge of talent. They know their stuff. But that's not always the case in every radio company out there, and surely not the case early in my career with the radio companies I worked with many years ago. They just didn't get it. And yet a lot of people that were doing jobs they weren't qualified for doing when it came to being in management. So, you know, Hoppy, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of people that maybe shouldn't even be doing certain jobs, and they don't know how to look at a talent like you. I mean, look at Brother Weeze. There's nobody in their right mind that would hire Weeze, except somebody took a chance on him, and it was the best move that they ever made as he became, I mean, a dynasty. And there are people that would never have put him on the air. And I used to fight with Weeze because I was coming from that school that I was trained. You should be like this. You should do this. You should be more traditional. And Weeze kept saying, no, 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 no. And at the time, I thought he was completely out of his mind. And now he can tell you later that he was 100% correct and I was the idiot. Thank God he was the one in power to shut me down, because I would have ruined everything if I had my say. So that's why, Hoppy, you keep going, brother, because who's to tell anybody that exactly how you be isn't what's going to be super successful in 10 years or 5 years or 20 years. Who knows what radio and audio entertainment is going to look like? I'm telling you, man, it could be as much you as anybody else. Why not you? I mean, that's the question I have. Why not you? I mean, you're in the business, you're young, you know what you want to do. You know, you have your vision, you have your passion. Who the hell can tell you no? Who would tell you no to that? Like they have a clue. I would say anybody that thinks they know what the future of this business is going to be to be able to say that you are a no, have no idea what they're talking about. I'm sorry. They just don't know. Because I don't know, and I'm in the business. I know that anything can happen is what I know.
Now, that means a lot, man, because I've known you for 8 years now, and we've been good friends. So for people that are maybe hearing this interview for the first time and they haven't listened to your podcast or your morning show, where can they find your work online and then on the radio?
Well, if you're in Seattle, we are at 99.9 FM. If you are anywhere else in the lovely land of the U.S., just go to KISW.com. So actually, they probably want you to go to radio.com. If you go to radio.com and search for KISW, you're going to find us there as well, or BJ Shea, BJ and Migs. All of those search words should get you in there. Yeah, radio. I probably should say radio.com. That's the clearinghouse for all of our stuff. We're all there. So, yeah, go to radio.com, search for KISW, BJ and Migs, MIGS. You should be able to find us there. And we have all of our shows that we have archived so that you can listen to shows you may have missed. podcasts, lots of fun podcasts. I'm a big geek, so I do a geeky podcast, which is different than the regular show. Yeah, those are the places you can find us.
Well, BJ, thank you for coming on the show. The past 45 minutes have been a lot of fun, and I sincerely mean this when I say that I'm going to re-listen to this, because you said a lot of things on this show that I have not thought about, and I feel like anybody else who's up and coming in radio should listen to this, because you spit a lot of knowledge this afternoon on the show.
Hoppy, always a pleasure to talk to you, brother. I'm so stoked to always hear that you're still employed in this business, because I remember that kid 8 years ago. That look in your eyes reinvigorates me. You took me back to when I was in my 20s, and I'm like, how I was so excited. Sometimes when you get to be an older person, you forget that, and you might lose a little passion, and it's always a gift when people like you come around with that excitement and that drive and that desire. So always a pleasure to hang with you, brother.
Thank you, BJ. If you're ever in Tampa Bay, hit me up.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to do it, brother. You'll have to take me to the Trop, because I do love to see my Red Sox. And even though the Rays give us fits, it'd be great to hang out and watch a ball game with you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you, BJ.